You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron. Now here's your host, Ethan Haristadoulou.
Comfortable win over the Carolina Panthers at home in San Francisco. We dive into rankings. Going through all 32 teams, worst to first, recapping all the matchups, breaking down what we saw, talking about how we feel about these teams as we are now going into week number 13 of the NFL. Basically 2/3 of the way through the year at this point now. So fire away in that comment section down below. Let me hear from you, your thoughts, your opinions on this weekend's matchups, all your takeaways, maybe even, and this kind of just like a question of the day sort of thing for you all there. Looking at the way things have shaken out so far to this season, as we go into this final third of the season, are there teams that you are maybe surprised or unsurprised about the most with? Whether it's a team that's doing really bad, a team that's doing really good, fire away in that comment section. Let me hear from you. A team that has surprised you the most, good or bad so far this season. But we'll go ahead, we'll take a look, just as a refresher, last week's power rankings as we go ahead and always do. Moving into week number 13 now, we will clear out the board and work our way up to the top, beginning with the Probably Picks top 5 category. Couple of, or at least one new team there in the bottom and some reshuffling as well. But sitting at the bottom as they have for at least a month and a half, I would say at this point now, give or take. We have the Tennessee Titans at the bottom of the board, followed by the Raiders. The Jets, the Saints have rejoined the category, and then the Giants moving up despite their loss, because I got to give them some love for at least absolutely bringing it to the Detroit Lions on the road on top of that of all places. So Titans, I think if there's anything you can take away from this team at this point here, as this rest of the season goes on, you're looking for bright spots and flashes from Cam Ward. I think this game should make you feel a little bit better about Cam Ward as a pro going forward. He has shown some flashes throughout the year, but I definitely think even with the way this game played itself out with a failed comeback attempt at the end, Cam Ward did do quite a bit to make this game interesting just in his own right for a team that has Swiss cheese for a defense and a run game that essentially does not exist at this point in the season. You have to feel at least good about what you're getting from him at this stage of the year as this team looks forward into the future with the way things have turned out, now sitting on 10 losses on the year, and wildly enough, not the team eliminated from playoff contention. We'll get to them in a second. Raiders right above them. It's funny because my notes really just have one question, and that is quite simply, does this offensive line hate Geno Smith? Is there some underlying beef that's going on that we don't know about? Because that O-line and the way Geno Smith has been attacked all season long, I don't know why bad offensive line play has plagued him since his career resurgence, because the O-line was pretty rough while he was in Seattle as well, and it's followed him now into Las Vegas. At this point, is it him? Is he holding on to the ball too long? Is it really just that coincidentally he just happened to be behind two of the worst offensive lines in two different places over the last few seasons? I don't really know, but it's crazy to watch that play itself out. Jets right above them. Shockingly, Tyrod Taylor not doing a whole lot to really revitalize this offense. He did, I guess, somewhat revitalize the passing game. Went north of 200 yards passing, so a woo for that one there. But the defense, I think, more than anything deserves some love because they at least kept this game close, kept the Ravens offense in check for a large majority of the game, holding them to 3 points in the first half. Ultimately, the Jets are what they are, though, at this point, finally folding in the back half of that game as things kicked off in the third quarter. So 2-9, not really surprised with the way things have gone for this team this season, that they walk away with another loss. But I do want to give some credit where it's due again. That defense did a good job, at least for the first half of the game, hanging on. And even basically a bad third quarter is all they really had. Saints right above them. When your offense has 6 drives ending in some sort of negative fashion, you get the end result that you got against the Falcons at home this past week. You have 2 missed field goals. You had a pair of turnovers to go along with that. A couple of drives ending on downs as well. It was a bit of a nightmare offensively for this team. And again, I'm in the firm belief that this team is in the market to land a young quarterback this offseason. Now, I will say, as the college football season has played itself out, if some people are starting to feel like maybe the Saints may hold off on getting a quarterback in this year's draft because the class isn't nearly as enticing as it looked going into the season, I would say that's a fair conversation to have. I do still think, though, with the way they're trending, couple of wins now, and I get Tyler Shucks a second-round pick. I don't really know if that's going to turn into what they're hoping it would over there in New Orleans. So I am in that camp of they're in the market for QB. If not this offseason, it's next offseason at the very latest. But it just not looking good offensively for a team that the defense, for the most part, has at least been solid this year. Giants right above them. The only team in pure Giant fashion, despite the fact that they have one more win than the Tennessee Titans do at 2-10, the Titans being 1-10, they are the only team eliminated from playoff contention so far this season. Ultimately, following that loss led to the defensive coordinator being fired as well. I don't really know if that's going to solve anything, but there is definitely some serious discontent going on within that organization. Players, coaches, whoever it may be. We saw a now since deleted post from Malik Neighbors himself, basically just spinning the accusation of this team losing on purpose. And I mean, if you see the way that game kind of played itself out, I get it. I really do, because as somebody just watching the game, no dog in the fight, there was a few moments where I was asking myself what the hell was going on. And I think none too crazier than the decision to not kick a field goal late in the game to put yourself in a position to really win this football game. I don't really understand that sequence of events. You're right in front of the goal line. I get you're trying to bury and put away this much better than you opponent that you're currently in the process of upsetting, but it's insane to me that you don't just settle for 3 there. I don't really get it. And then I've got to give some credit to Jameis Winston and Gunnar Olszewski for that wild play that they were able to draw up. The craziest trick play I've ever seen. For Jameis Winston to come down for the catch, juke a guy, body a guy, and then score the touchdown. Just insane nonsense altogether. And the fact that it was Gunnar Olszewski of all people throwing him the football, that's insane. And it's unfortunate that stuff like that goes to waste and you don't come away with an upset. I will not understand the decision to go for points or go for the end zone score as opposed to just taking 3 points there where they did. Whatever, I guess, but it does not make sense to me. Moving into our next category, of course, the Swirling the Toilet category. Those teams whose seasons are technically not done, but we're getting pretty close to it here. We start with the Browns at the bottom, followed by the Commanders, the Cardinals, the Bengals, the Vikings, the Falcons, and then to round out the group, we're looking at the Miami Dolphins, who had a successful bye week moving up because the team dropped below them. That being said, the Browns, I know it's just one game, but I think Myles Garrett's face said it all when Shedeur Sanders connected deep on a pass early in the game. Listen, it's one game. I'm not going to overreact. I am well aware that a lot of the success of this team in that game against the Raiders, a lot of it came down to really good defense, some big plays made by some playmakers getting the ball in their hands quickly and making things happen. But it was a solid performance and arguably probably the best offensive performance this Browns team has had in some time. I like the direction this is going, and I can't believe it's taken this long for us to get to Shedeur Sanders' opportunity to start, and it's unfortunate that it was a Dylan Gabriel injury that led to it, and I'll be curious to see what happens because it sounds like Kevin Stefanski's willing to go back to Dylan Gabriel as soon as he's ready. But I think the combination of how this defense has been playing, Quinshaw Judkins in the run game being serviceable enough and sometimes even better depending on the weekend, and then just Shedeur Sanders doing a good job of taking care of the football and not putting it in harm's way and managing these football games could lead to some interesting contests for the Browns the remainder of the season. Commanders above them did not play this week. Don't have much to say on them. Sounds like Jaden Daniels, though, might not be ready to go for this next upcoming matchup, so tough for them. Cardinals right after them. I will say hell of a performance by the defense to keep this game close and within reach to the very end of this one here, but a complete lack of a run game is just continuing to hurt this football team more than anything else, and obviously dealing with injuries in the running back room is going to lead to stuff like that. You got another 300-yard performance out of Jacoby Brissett, who continues to have a better handle on the passing operation than Kyler Murray has had in some time for this team. So there is that going for you as well. But this team is ultimately 3-8 and found another way to lose against a Jacksonville Jaguars team that likes to flirt with handing football games away and still coming away with W's. Bengals above them. I definitely want to give the defense some credit for making this game very interesting because early on, you get the early stop, then you get the pick six off Drake May. Next thing you know, Bengals are up 10-0, and you did a really good job of making the Patriots earn this W. So I think the defense, for as much of the finger pointing and laughing that they've been getting at them all season long, deserves some love for Drake May, who was an MVP candidate up until coming into this football game, and it seems like that noise has slowed down a little bit because of it. They brought it to him, and I definitely got to give them some credit there. All eyes, though, of course, turning to Joe Burrow now as the offense looked pretty flat in this contest here. And his eventual return, obviously Jamar Chase being back as well. Sounds like Joe Burrow should be good to go for Thanksgiving, so that'll be a really fun one to look forward to. But I mean, the best this team can do is 9-8. You got to win out to be able to get to that record. I'm curious if anyone who's watching this that happens to be a Bengals fan, and even if you're not, just if you think it's the right move to have Joe Burrow come back at this stage of the season or not. Like, I'm just genuinely curious on the opinions more than anything else. I think that you were never going to stop Joe Burrow from making this return regardless of what the team's record is. My concern is more so just the risk of injury again behind an O-line that hasn't been great as well, and just for a 3-8 season that's basically lost. Like, you had to beat the Patriots to really keep playoff hopes alive. Could not get it done there. I'm now sitting at 3-8 with 9-8 being the best record you can pull. And an AFC that's very top heavy right now, I don't think 9-8 gets you into the playoffs this year. Vikings above them. The big story in Minnesota, obviously, right now is just J.J. McCarthy. Nothing more, nothing less. It's simply just J.J. McCarthy, who has 0 games without an interception so far this season. And he has more games with 2 interceptions than games that he doesn't have 2 interceptions. And at 2-4 as a starter, at this rate, Carson Wentz was better for them sitting at 2-3 as a starter, and he had a better touchdown to interception ratio on top of it. The frustration's clearly boiling over, and I don't know where this team goes, because this feels like a mighty blunder considering you had both Daniel Jones, who is honestly kind of showing some cracks in his game as well for Indy, but also Sam Darnold, who has looked better than ever over in Seattle now in the building, and you let them both walk for free this past offseason. Falcons above them at 4-7. I will say this. I love the success that they're having with this pass rush. You get yourself into a bit of a rock fight with a division rival, albeit not a great one, but a division rival. But you're able to fortify this unit in the offseason. You go out, you get Leonard Floyd, you spend 2 first-round picks on edge rushers, and a lot of people kind of laughed off the entire move. In hindsight, it's kind of really playing into the Falcons' favor, because the Rams, obviously everyone was talking about, the opportunity to get a quarterback in next year's draft class with 2 first-round picks. That QB draft class kind of looks like it sucks now, and now you have the Falcons, who have one of the best pass rushes in the NFL. I'm just saying that in hindsight is really looking like a solid move for the Falcons, all things considered, with how it's basically paved the way for this defense to really figure themselves out this year. Coming away with 5 sacks against Tyler Shuck, your playmakers making some big plays when you need it most. Kirk Cousins being serviceable enough in his advanced age. You have yourself a couple of big plays on both the touchdown drives from Bijan Robinson. Darnell Mooney obviously catching a big 49-yard touchdown later in the game. The team's 4-7. Let's not lose sight of that reality. But we're seeing some good things. I am very interested in what happens at quarterback for this team moving forward, because the struggles of Michael Penix and now dealing with an injury that ends his season again, he's going to be going into year 3 with a lot of uncertainty around him. And obviously Kirk Cousins, I don't think, is the answer at this point. Just a team in a really weird place. But I will say the attempt to build this pass rush out and completely fix it after it was near league worst last year seems to be paying off in dividends. Dolphins right above them. Did not play this week, obviously, but they did slide up because the Vikings slid down so far. So good job, Dolphins, on a successful bye week. Moving into our next category, we have ourselves that Jeff Fisher 500 club. Of course, the teams hanging around 500, maybe just on the outside looking in of that playoff contention. We start with the Cowboys at the bottom, followed by the Panthers, the Jaguars, the Steelers, the Buccaneers, and then rounding out the category, we got ourselves the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, the Cowboys, incredible fight by them to be able to come away with the W in this matchup against a division rival A, but of course one of the best teams in the NFL in the Philadelphia Eagles. For this game to have gone the way it did, where you start out with those first 4 drives just being a literal nightmare for you offensively, and watching the Eagles kind of run away with that 21-0 lead, I think it says a lot about this team and this team's fight and willingness to keep on pushing despite the bad situation you're in, kind of maybe not necessarily watching your season slip away, but if this game goes the other way and that lead just keeps on growing, you're putting yourself in a really bad spot as the Cowboys. So for them to battle through all of that, to get back, score 24 unanswered, the defense which has admittedly been a bit of a nightmare itself this entire season, turned things around in the second half, shut it down, and put you in a position to ultimately come away with the win in this football game. I think that says a lot about this Cowboys team and the fight that they have. So I'm excited to see them kind of back in the thick of things here. I'll be looking forward to seeing how this defense continues to improve and grow since the trade deadline, because this is now at least 2 games in a row where defensively they've looked pretty good for, I would say, 6 of the 8 quarters that they've played so far. Obviously, first half was a bit of a obviously tough, but offense wasn't really helping you out either. So like pretty good couple of games since the trade deadline for Dallas's defense to this point. Panthers right above them, sitting at 500 now. This has been a consistent problem with this team all season long, and that's just you don't really know what version of the Panthers offense you're going to get, and that's kind of been to their detriment and a big reason why they're sitting at 6-6 now. This is the 4th game this season where they've gone for 10 points or less in a game, and hence the reason this team is sitting at 6-6. And it's a shame because you had a really good defensive performance early. 3 interceptions off of Brock Purdy. I mean, J.C. Horn, unfortunate that he had to exit the football game because he had himself 2 interceptions in this matchup here. But that has been the long-standing problem for this Panthers team, is just you get games where the offense looks unbelievable. Like to go from literally just last week where you have Bryce Young throwing for career highs to what you got from this offense this past week now is just, it sums up perfectly this Panthers season and why this team is currently sitting at 6-6. Right above them, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I hate to say this, but it's like another typical Jacksonville Jaguars game where you're like pulling teeth to come away with this win. You're also almost handing this game away on top of it, but still somehow finding a way to win. For a team to be 7-4 and to have played the way they have, this is like mind-boggling stuff for me, and it's hard for me to fathom. Trevor Lawrence, I mean, at this stage in his career is one of the more polarizing quarterbacks in the NFL because you get 3 touchdowns from him on one hand, but you also have 3 interceptions on the other, and is a big reason why this game was the way it was. You have a stout run defense, a Swiss cheese pass defense. I mean, it's impressive to watch this team come away with win after win the way they have this season, and the fact they're sitting at 7-4 is just insane to me. I do want to say, though, Jacoby Myers, I think, is a massive addition to this team, and he has played off really well for this team to this point. So I'm looking forward to seeing him continue to evolve within this offense, especially as there's some clear issues going on within the wide receiver room. Trevor Lawrence's connection with Brian Thomas, and also him just missing time as well. And then, of course, losing Travis Hunter for the extended period that you have so far. Steelers above them, definitely some cracks within the foundation of this team right now. Patrick Queen just kind of openly criticizing the scheme and some of the things that are just hard for players to do and tough positions to be put in. It seems like the noise now that we have seen from Steelers fandom is leaking out of the locker room at this point here. So we'll see what happens and how things shake out, but at 6-5 now, it looks like Vegas was right in terms of who the odds-on favorite was to win the AFC North, because now the Ravens lead the division. And I will say this, for an offense that didn't have Aaron Rodgers, I know that Mason Rudolph was a part of some of the struggles that this team dealt with offensively, but I mean, he did a solid job in his absence. There was definitely some miscues and miscommunication, some mental lapses and errors, penalties, costly mistakes, things like that. But ultimately, for them to have hung around the way they did with this Bears team, I've got to tip my cap to that effort. It sounds like Aaron Rodgers is going to be back next week, so looking forward to see him back under center for this team. But the defense is really where my biggest concerns lie right now, because they just cannot stop anyone through the air, and it's becoming a weekly problem for this team at this point here. And again, you now have players kind of calling it out openly, and that typically doesn't trend in a positive direction. Following them, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Injuries and a pass defense that's been struggling for a vast majority of this season, I feel like kind of caught this team in a really bad spot. I expected the Rams to win that game. I did not expect them to just completely blow the doors off the Bucs and have this game won by halftime. Baker Mayfield being allowed back into that football game is one of those things where you wonder why, because it was clear he was in pain and uncomfortable from the jump when he first got hurt. And for him to be, clutching in pain after coming back into the football game, especially at that point, the Rams were just blasting this Buccaneers team to no end. I mean, we got to 28-7, I think it was. And at that point, I just felt like this game is kind of already wrapped up. Like, I know we've seen comeback magic from this Buccaneers team earlier in the season. We haven't seen that much in a while. At that point, you just wave the white flag and move on to next week and don't risk your quarterback's health. That's kind of where my head is at in that situation. There was just from the outside watching, I know it's different when you're on the field and coaching and in that situation, in the heat of the moment, in the battlefield, I get it. But I mean, you get to that 28-7 look with how that game had played out to that point, you just go, what are we doing here? Like, just let's pack it up and move on to next week. Clearly Baker Mayfield's not okay. Why are we bringing him back out there? Chiefs right above them. To wrap up the category here, backs against the wall in a situation where you're kind of in must-win because a loss would really put this team behind the 8 ball in what is a very top-heavy AFC. O-line struggling. Defense, though, starting to lock it down late in the game as things kind of got a little out of hand early. Mahomes did his thing, and I mean, those final 2 drives of regulation, that's why you pay a guy like Patrick Mahomes the money you do, and that's why people look at Patrick Mahomes like one of the best in the NFL, because it was literally just Patrick Mahomes leading this team to the 2 scoring drives they needed to get things knotted up to take this into overtime. And I've got to give Spagnuolo and the defense a ton of credit for what they did, because they shut things down after the Colts made their final field goal in that game. For them to be able to just lock it down completely, let the offense struggle still, but be able to hold the Colts to literally a goose egg from that point forward, impressive stuff. Not surprising considering how many rings Spagnuolo has as a defensive coordinator, but a really good just team effort in a gotta-have-it situation at home against another really good AFC team in the Indianapolis Colts. Moving into playoff hopefuls, and as a reminder, as always, 7 teams from each conference. You got to have all 8 division winners in there, followed by 3 wildcard teams for each conference remaining after that. We start with the Chargers at the bottom of the playoff hopefuls, followed by the Lions, the Bills, the Texans, the Ravens, the Bears, 49ers, and then the Packers rounding out the category. And I've got to say, this was a tough group to organize, and if you have disagreements about where certain teams are in this category specifically, I kind of understand it, because I had a really hard time balancing out how I wanted to label or how I wanted to position all these teams, and I don't even know if I'm really settled on them as they currently stand, but I got to get this out eventually. So Chargers obviously not playing this week. I keep them at the bottom of the playoff hopefuls right now. I am a little bit concerned about them, though. Overall, just the health of that offensive line is a big issue in my opinion. Following that up is the Detroit Lions. Wild game, to put it simply. You should not be finding yourselves, especially at home, in the situation you found yourself in against that New York Giants team. But much love to Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown for basically doing everything that they possibly could to carry this team to a victory. And of course, Jahmyr Gibbs capping off overtime with a monster run to go ahead and get the game-winning score, essentially. Defense needs to take a long look in the mirror, especially after giving up 366 yards passing to Jameis Winston and what is like a completely depleted roster over there in New York. Excuse me. And then, of course, like the trick play that they were able to pull off between Jameis Winston and Gunnar Olszewski we talked about earlier. It's just, you can't have stuff like that happening to you at this stage of the season. Bills above them, not a good road team. Not a good road team, and that's a bit of a problem with 3 road games remaining on your schedule. They're currently 2-3 on the road, so under 500 as it currently stands. We've seen the offensive line struggling a bit. They have now had 4 sacks against Atlanta, 5 games with 3 sacks or more so far this season, and they obviously had the 8 sacks allowed against this Houston pass rush. And they have Pittsburgh, New England, and Cleveland coming up in those road games. Cleveland, we've been seeing what Myles Garrett's been doing, so definitely worried about that. Pittsburgh does have a pretty good pass rush when they get going and take advantage of an O-line that's struggling. And New England, their pass rush is about meh, but it has gotten a little bit better as of late. Depending on how the injury shakes itself out with Milton Williams, you may not have to deal with him, so that's a plus on your end. But you got 3 good teams with 3 solid, at worst, pass rushes, 2 pretty good ones in Pittsburgh and Cleveland that you have coming up on the road. Something needs to be done about how this thing has worked itself out so far this season for the Bills on the road. It's not been pretty. And at this rate, with the teams that you're going up against, 2 of them being potential playoff teams, the third one being a Cleveland Browns team that brings the fight to everybody they play. I mean, hypothetically speaking, if things go south, at Pittsburgh, probably not so much. I could see a loss to New England and to Cleveland. They've already lost to the Patriots. The Browns do not mess around with the way they play defense. Pittsburgh, I mean, that team's kind of a toss-up right now with where they actually stand. But, I mean, they've got to figure it out on the road because that has been the Achilles heel of this team so far this season. Texans above them. Defense will, of course, win you championships or even just games in prime time at home against a favorite. Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, man, I mean, arguably the best pass rushing edge duo in the NFL at this point. I mean, there's no real ifs, ands, or buts about it. 4.5 sacks between just those two alone. They are an absolute unit. The defense as a whole, finishing with 8 sacks and 11 tackles for loss. You want to talk about winning at the line of scrimmage on defense? That was definitely a prime example of that. And I got to give some love, of course, to Davis Mills, who is just piloting this team in the absence of CJ Stroud, and I believe it's 3 straight wins now with Davis Mills at quarterback. Incredible stuff, all things considered, because you'd think, oh my God, losing CJ Stroud, we are screwed. No, not with Davis Mills in the building. No, he can get you W's, even though he's not supposed to be that guy for you. He's done a great job in the absence of Stroud. Ravens right above them. Defense clearly all the way back at this point here. No more than 19 points allowed in 6 straight games at this point, going all the way back to the game before their bye week against the Rams, where they only gave up 17 to that offense that absolutely took the Bucs defense to task on Sunday Night Football. The offense does, however, continue to feel like it is pulling teeth trying to score points, and that is a little bit of a concern. No touchdowns until the opening drive of the third quarter, where they managed back-to-back scoring drives after that start of the third. Lamar Jackson making it a point to say that it's not injuries holding him back or anything like that is also something to just kind of keep an eye on, I guess, and an ear to. But if the offense could just sort itself out and get back into a better rhythm, like Lamar Jackson's one of the best passers in the NFL, or one of the best, if not arguably the best and cleanest passer in the NFL. He's got one of the best passer ratings of all time. He's so damn good at throwing the football. So if they can just get back on schedule offensively, I feel good about this team right now. They are storming back right now and have now stolen the AFC North from the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they're in a really good spot right now. They hold the keys to their destiny at this stage. And this was a team that at one point was 1-5, and everyone was like, man, you got to win out to get yourself in the playoffs. And the Ravens, as it stands right now, are doing just that. Bears above them, another game, another multiple takeaway performance by the defense here. This team will continue to find ways to win so long as this defense looks as aggressive as it does. And the best part of the takeaways you had in this game, the offense coming away with touchdowns off of those turnovers. That is the crucial part here, because it has not always been true with the offense in being able to capitalize on some of those turnovers being made. If you can get more of that from the Chicago Bears offense, what we saw from this team this past week with a little bit of better defensive performance, and obviously a ton of guys missing from the matchup, like the entire linebacking room was out for this matchup for them alone. So if this team can just get healthier on defense, continue to play the way that they have been, and the offense can capitalize on these turnovers, I like what they're building over there. Wasn't perfect offensively. Pair of back-to-back fumbles by the offense could have turned this game completely sideways, and it almost did. But Caleb Williams putting together another really strong game altogether. I would have liked a score on like one of those final 2 drives that they had to actually put Pittsburgh away, and you don't really want a 10-point lead to turn into a 3-point lead to turn into, okay, are we going to potentially lose this game to Mason Rudolph now? Obviously, you don't want to be in that situation, but overall, great performance from Chicago, man, battling through adversity throughout this game here and got the W. 49ers above them, one of those like a win is a win type of matchups for them. I've got to say, I mean, 3 interceptions from Brock Purdy, man. And this was something I talked about previewing this game. We have seen performances like this from Purdy before. This is now the 3rd game, I believe, in his career where he's thrown for 3 or more interceptions. So, I mean, credit to the defense for buckling down and keeping this game close. Ultimately, Carolina only came away with, I believe, 3 points off of those 3 interceptions he threw, which is good on them. But, I mean, the defense, for as battered and injured as they are, to be able to hold that Panthers offense in check basically all game long. I mean, Jair Taylor coming away with a couple interceptions, one of them being an end zone interception that he caught right after Brock Purdy had thrown one, as a few plays before. So, great work by the defense to keep this one close, but that's scary because we have seen Brock Purdy do that before, and we've seen Brock Purdy throw multiple interceptions in multiple games a lot through the early stages of his career so far, and that's not what you want to see with him in now his 2nd game back since his injury and all that time off. But we'll hold our breath for now. 49ers 8-4, still very well in the thick of things and in the playoff hunt for the NFC. Packers above them. A lot of love got to go to the defense in this one here, especially for slamming the door late on this one here. I mean, they basically have, I feel like, solidified a lot of people's opinions on J.J. McCarthy, so never a bad day whenever you can do something like that to a division rival. Obviously, without Josh Jacobs, Tucker Kraft, and the injuries have kind of caught up with the offense a little bit, so it has not been pretty, but you still come away with 23 points when it's all said and done. But the defense, man, the defense is the real reason why this team came away with a W, because there were some instances in that game where you wanted to see more from that Packers offense and you weren't quite getting it. Minnesota's defense admittedly is a pretty good unit when things are going well for them too, so there is that on top of it. But for them to basically bury J.J. McCarthy's career at this point, you got to feel good about that one. And then moving into the Super Bowl contenders category, the final 6 teams in the top of the NFL. We start with the Indianapolis Colts coming off that loss to the Chiefs. The Patriots right above them, staying put where they are. Eagles, Seahawks, the Broncos, and then a new number 1 for us here in the Los Angeles Rams. We have seen the Colts defense get diced up a few different times this season, so this is not too surprising, I guess I should say, especially late in the game kind of folding the way they did. I'm more so surprised because this secondary is basically healthy now. Like, you have Charvarius Ward, you have Sauce Gardner, who was obviously a recent addition to this defense, you have Kenny Moore, and you struggled the way you did late when those guys should be locking things down as some of the best at their position around the NFL, with Kenny Moore being one of the best nickel corners in the NFL, and Charvarius Ward and Sauce Gardner are no slouches themselves. So unfortunate to see that. The run game obviously getting shut down. Daniel Jones is lucky he didn't have a couple of turnovers in this game alone. And then, of course, the way this game just ended, where you are up 20-9, command of this game, offense just stalls out, and you have 4 straight drives to finish this game off, from regulation down to the final drive in overtime, where you are basically going 3 and out. The offense completely flatlined, and I don't know how in that string of 4 drives, as you're just punting the football away, do you feel okay with allowing those drives to end the way they did? Like, you're hoping that you're saving some of your best punches for late in the game to put a football game away against Patrick Mahomes in Arrowhead to make a legitimate statement to the rest of the NFL that this isn't a fluky Colts team. And you go out and you blow the game the way you did. Just completely disappointing to watch. Patriots above them, much tighter game than you'd like to have against a Bengals team that was missing basically everybody but T. Higgins. Drake May, I've got to say, is really good at just kind of moving on from mistakes that he makes, and I think that's one of the things I appreciate about him the most, is he'll throw a pick, or a pick six in this case, and then turn right around, and he can lead a scoring drive 1 or 2 drives later like it never even happened. I do think, though, that the big concern, obviously, coming out of this game, and it sounds like nothing was too serious, but these guys will miss time. You lose left tackle Will Campbell, or you lose Jared Wilson, the left guard, first, and then ultimately lose Will Campbell a little bit later in the game. And the way he looked, you would have thought that was a season-ending injury, which in that moment, like, you see that emotion and the way he's probably feeling, that's probably his fear. So you're getting that emotion for a reason. Obviously, great to hear it's not as serious, but for a guy that loves this team, loves his quarterback, and clearly wants to be that protector on the blind side, you love to see that emotion from Will Campbell. Ultimately, Patriots are 10-2, man. I mean, yes, you want a more comfortable win against a Bengals team that's kind of down and out, and maybe the conversation is just you find out that it's no longer Joe Burrow after the Bengals were kind of playing games all week long with him potentially being available for the game, to, okay, it's just Joe Flacco, no Jamar Chase, just T. Higgins. Like, maybe the Patriots kind of sleptwalk into this one a little bit, but ultimately you get the win regardless, 26-20. I cannot believe this team is the first team to 10 wins this season. It's a crazy thing to watch. Schedule be damned. They have 2 wins over 2 good teams in the Bucs and, of course, the Buffalo Bills. And, like, if you look at the way that they lost their other 2 games this season, the season opener to the Raiders, I mean, week 1 is week 1, so things like that happen. But if you don't have 5 turnovers against the Steelers, we're talking 11 wins on the Patriots right now. It's absolutely crazy. Eagles right above them. The Philadelphia offensive doubters definitely got themselves a little bit of ammo coming out of this game here. This was one of the harder swings I've seen in a game in quite some time, because you go from 21 unanswered to allowing 24 unanswered and ultimately losing the game. I don't understand how something like that can go down, like how that momentum swing was the way it was. And then you have like the muff punt that puts yourself in a very precarious spot. Your defense giving you all the momentum you could possibly ask for by making a goal line stand against Dallas there, and then you go 5 plays and a punt and you ultimately lose. I don't know how you aren't more aggressive in that situation and how you can't get yourself into at least field goal range late in that game. It is what it is. Maybe Dallas's defense has turned a corner since the trade deadline, like I mentioned earlier, but not a great game whatsoever by the offense for this Eagles team. And sure, you can praise the defense up and down for how much it's buttoned up over the last handful of weeks, but this offense and the problems that it's been showing consistently, that will not go away. The Seahawks above them, late mental lapses just kind of killing you late because you should have ran away with this game. Like you were up 30-10, and that's one of those just like kind of stomp on their neck and put them out of their misery sort of games. But it felt like you let up, some things kind of go not your way, and just ultimately you're getting a little bit overly aggressive, far more than you need to. Like I wasn't really sure with the decision on 4th and 3, up 2 touchdowns to go for it. Like at that point, punt and put them and pin them into a situation where they're going from like their 10 or their 5-yard line, because you probably prevent that like mini comeback attempt that the Titans had going late in that game there. But if there is anything I do want to say positive about this, other than just having a far closer game than you would have liked from this Seahawks team, Jackson Smith-Njigba and the conversation about him being the best wide receiver in the NFL needs to start happening if it's not already happening. What he is currently doing as now the franchise leader in receiving yards for the Seahawks with 5 games to go. What are they at? 8-3. So you got 6 games to go. 6 games to go. The conversation needs to be had. He's on pace for 2,000 yards receiving. And if he's able to hit that mark, we need to have a real conversation. And honestly, like the conversation should already be kind of happening. But I'll just leave it at that and let everyone know that I'm very open to that discussion. I understand people love their Justin Jeffersons. They love their Jamar Chases in that conversation. With those two guys are there neck and neck. But Jackson Smith-Njigba, considering kind of the guys he's working with on offense in the receiving, as far as like receivers go for this offense, it's him. It's literally him. Yeah, you got a good running game going. Kenneth Walker looking really good this season. Obviously, Sam Darnold continuing his career resurgence in Seattle right now behind a really good O-line. But it's the Jackson Smith-Njigba show when it comes to catching passes over there in Seattle, and it's been exciting to watch. Broncos didn't play this week. Big beneficiary of multiple teams losing this week, the Colts, the Eagles. So good bye week for them, I guess you could say, as they jump up to the number 2 spot here. And then ultimately the Rams taking their throne. You want to talk about a team firing on all cylinders coming off of Sunday Night Football here. Like I said earlier, this game was basically over. It felt midway through the second quarter. Whenever that score hit 28-7, I was like, all right, yeah, this is pretty much in the bag at this point here. But pairing Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams together is probably going to go down as one of the best decisions made this offseason by any team. The fact that Devontae was willing to go to LA to play with the Rams, Matthew Stafford, he leads the league in receiving touchdowns now and has been an unbelievable red zone threat for this team. What this Rams team has brewing, both offensively with Stafford firmly in the MVP race as the number 1 guy, and then the defense emerging the way it has over this season. The pass rush is unbelievable. The secondary, so young, feisty, and playing well, especially the group of safeties you have over there. This Rams team looks like a real problem and a real team primed for a Super Bowl run right now, because I look at the way everything else stacks out in the NFC, and I don't want to say it's not close, but I look at the Rams like the clear favorite in the NFL right now. Overall, not even just the NFC, but just overall with the way they're playing. But those are my rankings coming out of week number 12, going into week number 13 of the NFL. Comment down below. Let me hear from you. Who do you like? Who do you dislike with where they're ranked and why? Fire away. Let me hear from you. Don't be afraid to hold back. Love hearing all of the conversation down below. But as always, if you made it to the end, I greatly appreciate it. I will see you all on Wednesday. We'll preview all of Thanksgiving's games because obviously, crazy week. We got Thanksgiving games on Thursday. We got Black Friday game on Friday. We got the games on Sunday as well. So you'll be seeing me a little bit more than you normally do this week. But we'll make sure we'll talk it all. So until next time, have a good one.